Thank you, Gabe and Karen. And as Virginia mentioned, one of our educational partners, GTX Wealth, Scott Olson, was originally on our panel today and wasn't able to make it. And he tapped Gabe to come in his stead. And so we really appreciate you being here and their colleagues and work closely together. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I officed with Scott for many years, and I can vouch for his character and quality of services. He's a great guy.
Well, there you go. So that's good to know. So let's just dive right in. And typically, we try to kind of volley between our panelists, and we may do a little bit of that, but there's enough separation in what a daily money manager does and then what Gabe does, so we may not quite, you may just sit up here for a little bit, but without questions. But if you have an issue hearing us, just tap your ear, but I think we did a good mic check, and everyone's going to be good this morning, okay? So, Gabe, let's start with you. And so how can retirees estimate how long their money is going to last? And what strategies can help kind of, stretch that further? Because I think that's a big part on people's minds sometimes. Like, how am I going to get my money to last?
This is a question to ask sooner rather than later, obviously. I'm sure many of you have asked that question and consider those things. It's wonderful. So I would say just really having an accurate understanding of your finances, what strategies you might use in order to create income from those. There's taxable issues that come up. There's issues that come up around simply liquidity. And so really planning and sitting down with somebody and mapping it all out. Some of you may be quite capable of doing that yourselves through your background, but others that I found really need just sort of someone to help them with that roadmap and to understand really how the impact of liquidating this might impact you, or investing here and what strategies there are. So it's important that you have a guided hand if you're not quite capable of that yourself.
And in your experience, what would be some common mistakes that you've seen people make when they're doing financial planning and planning for their financial legacy? What are some common mistakes you've seen?
Having unrealistic expectations. I think that the drawdown, expecting on how much money we can take out of our investment accounts, the value added, the what-if scenarios are really the gotchas, I would say, because we never expect a 30% drawdown in a market. We never expect. Now, interestingly enough, we've had bonds come up significantly in value. Many of you haven't experienced great bond yields for many, many years, so that may have been a happy thing for some of you. As those go back down, we may not be able to realize and enjoy those higher yields that we've seen recently. So the market can shift, but also simply having too great of expectations, drawing down at a too aggressive of a rate.
And as we go through, again, for those of you who are new, we'll have a time for questions at the end. And on one of your sheets there's an action step form. You can write on that, for your questions. But we'll make sure we get to your questions at the end. So make sure you write those down. So, Karen, let's just switch to you, okay?
Okay.
All right, okay. So I love the idea of a daily money manager. I didn't really know that existed. So I was talking to one of our attendees earlier how I'm always learning stuff too up here on the panel. So tell us about that. Like, just maybe briefly, and this isn't one of our questions, I'm putting you on the spot.
No
How did
worries.
you get here to this place as a daily money manager? Like, what was that journey
Yes,
like for you?
Absolutely. I'd love to share that. My background is banking, 25 years in lending, both residential lending and commercial lending. So talking to people about their income, their expenses, their assets, their liabilities, their credit report, their scores, all of that is just second nature to me. I've been doing it for 25 years. And last last August, my uncle passed away, and I just rolled up my sleeves to help my aunt through a lot of things, helping her plan the funeral, helping her with the estate attorney. You'll probably hear some answers about that again. But really working with her through this, helping her, making sure all the bills were paid, that the mail is opened, things of that nature, just really helping her through. I was seeing her almost every day throughout that process. And I was in the process of looking for another bank position, but I wasn't excited about returning to banking. I really wanted to return. I really wanted to continue doing this work with her. It just meant so much more to me. And so I was telling my sister, this is the type of work I really want to do. And so my sister talked to her friend who had a friend in San Antonio who was a daily money manager. And I said, what's that? And then I looked up the American Association of Daily Money Managers, and I realized that's the title of what I want to do. And that is the legacy I want to have for myself and to help others. And so I looked up the research, and I joined the American Association of Daily Money Managers, which you need to be background checked in order to be qualified for membership, which I was successful in that. And so I appreciate that it's a good group, and they provide a lot of resources to help us help our clients and the different things that we have to jump through. So it was pretty much Aunt Jan and Uncle Mike are the reason why I'm sitting here, and I tell Aunt Jan that too. I said, thank you for allowing me to help you, because that is what began my business.
Great, thank you. So in your experience, what are some common day-to-day challenges, financial challenges that retirees face, and how can they stay organized?
Sure. One of the big things that can be concerning is unpaid bills that can get us into trouble. So one thing that opening mail, which can be kind of complex, and who knows if it's junk mail or if it's serious mail, but opening mail and then figuring out, does it need action? Does it need to be paid? Is it something to be filed, or is it something to be shred? Another one is, in my opinion, I love automatic payment of bills. That is so easy. It's come a long way, and now one where you can have the bills paid automatically so you never are late. Even if your credit card, if you don't want the whole payment made, you can have the minimum payment pulled out of your account every month, which will protect your credit score, because in my world, you want to protect that credit score. You never know when you might need it. I don't know if they check credit whenever you look at moving, but that would be something that I would consider important.
Great. And what are some steps that people can take to help protect themselves? Now, let me caveat this. So we're already planning our calendar for 2026, and most likely we're going to have a seminar on scams, and so we're really excited about that. And I know you've done some significant research in that area, but it's a very real thing, a very real threat to everyone, and I think especially retirees, seniors. I think they are especially a target, it seems like. So what are some ways that we can protect ourselves?
Well, a lot of times the scammers are looking to see if there's somebody behind that telephone, that telephone number, like they might call, that email, or that text. And I'm sure all of you have received those types of scams. My recommendation is, if you don't know the telephone call, the number that is calling you, let it go to voicemail. And if it's the doctor's office that is looking to schedule or reschedule or something, they'll leave a message. But if you answer the phone, that tells the scammer this line is active. So think of it as like a hook, like if you're fishing and you've got 3 fishing poles out there and 2 poles are not nibbling, but we just got a nibble on that one. So that's kind of how I think about it. Same thing with emails. Be really, really careful with emails, because that is a very prevalent scam right now. And then third is text messages. Some of you might receive a simple text that is, "Hi," or, "Are you going to work tomorrow?" It's like, don't, if you don't know the sender, if you don't know who is sending it and it has some type of concern like your bill is late and you need to pay this now, stop, don't react to it and use a different method to make sure that that bill is legitimate. If it's, for example, Spectrum or Stown saying your payment is late, if you have Spectrum, go to your bill and call them from the telephone number on your Spectrum bill to find out, is my payment late? Because I thought these payments were on automatic payment. And then if you realize that that email was a scam, you need to delete the email and change your password, change your email password.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And I would just say the IRS is not going to text you. So just know that, right? And one thing, she talked about email, and this is really important. As you guys all know, we have such electronic accessibility to all of our financial accounts, right? Investment accounts, so the lion's share of someone's money maybe you're simply hopefully you have two-factor authentication when you're logging in. But one way to tell if that's a genuine email is if you go to the two. Now, don't click on the link at all, but click on the person that sent it. Usually that's like a hyperlink, and it'll open up and show you the full email address. And a lot of times it's like Gordon@blueservice.com. And you're like, well, I don't know any blueservice.com. You know instantaneously, without a doubt, that's absolutely a scam. But if you're not expecting an email or a call or a voicemail from someone, I would say be very, very careful.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else, I assume that there was a few months ago, man, did I get text after text about my toll bill from Harris County Toll, and I'm like, and there's this sense that when you get it, you're like, I didn't pay my, and so, but it's all a scam. Yep. And it's crazy how many things are out there to distract us, to get us to have a sense of urgency to click on something in an email or a hyperlink in text even.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. So we will talk a lot more about that next year in one of our seminars. I'm super excited about that. So Gabe, let's punt this back over to you. So we're going to shift gears and just spice it up anyway. So we're talking about money, keeping our money, making it last. So what would be 2 or 3 kind of major high-level investment strategies? And I'm a simple guy, so talk to the layman here, of that you would recommend. And again, we're not talking a personal recommendation to me or a consultation, but a high level, what would be 2 or 3 main strategies?
And that really is the $1,000,000 question. And it sounds like a cop-out, but it depends absolutely on the investor. So the person, how many assets do they have? What kind of investment experience do they have? What are their goals? What are their time frames? Now, there are some very secure type of things, places that are cash or cash-like, that will provide a yield or provide safety. And it's absolutely foundational that one would have a stable foundation. And if you get a chance to meet with Scott Olson, GTX Wealth, who I'm representing, he would run you through the financial house. And what he would talk about is, first of all, you must set that stability, that firm foundation. We think about a foundation of a house. We think about cash, we think about CDs, we think about things that are highly liquid that you can get to quickly that aren't going to drastically swing. Of course, during your accumulation years, for many of you, those are, hopefully you're just right in your prime of accumulation. But we have just regular investment, retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks that are investing long-term, but also cash. And then we think about long-term investments as well, things those buckets that might be for down the road for your heirs. And that's an important consideration. So as we navigate through these conversations, what are the accounts and what are they for? What are their purpose? Do they need to generate income, or do they need to generate growth, or a mixture of both? And what am I planning on leaving to the next generation, and how important that is? How much money you want to put in Uncle Sam's hands, and how much you'd like to reserve for your children. These are all important considerations.
I appreciate that. As you were talking, Gabe, I thought to myself, and I am going to ask you a question that is not on my list here. Sorry, I told him I wasn't going to ask him anything not on this list. But what should you look for in a wealth manager? Like what qualities or characteristics? Because I think I'm asking because there may be people who haven't done significant financial planning, or they're thinking about it, but there may be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that 10, 20 years ago. There's hesitation and maybe some, regret about some financial decision. Right. And so I think it takes something, right, to take that first step to meet with somebody. So what would you say, and you being the model, and Scott, what would you say to look for personality-wise or character-wise in a financial manager? Yeah.
It's hard for someone to discern, but if someone is leading with a product, I would say look elsewhere. Get second and third opinion. If someone only sells hammers, everything looks like a nail. You've heard that, right? And so if someone's leading with a product and they always come back to their product, I'll tell you, I've never put anyone in just one product. When we do a financial plan or look at your investments, putting everybody into one thing, it's unthinkable. It's unconscionable. It's not a proper fiduciary obligation. So what you're looking for is someone that approaches your relation with just that. I want to know you. I want to know your circumstances. I want to know where you're trying to go, and I also want to know how much you're comfortable with what we're talking about, that you understand what we're talking about. And when we do that, we can devise a plan together and we can put it in place. And you should understand how every piece of that plan is going to work. It should be clear enough that you that you understand, so plain enough that you completely understand. But if you want to have more of a complex and understand the inner workings of what that is, you should absolutely ask those questions. And so if someone were to come in and says, this one thing will fix everything that you're looking for, run. Run. Why? Because that's what they're going to do. They're going to run. They're going to get their big commission, and then you won't talk to them again. It's a trap. So make sure that you're judging the person, that they're trying to educate you. Like Scott Olson, he will educate you. And if you work with me, I would educate you and simply understand who you are and make a plan. I tell people, and the more I think about it, it sounds kind of salesy, but I'm the worst salesperson ever. I don't look to sell anybody on anything. I plan on talking, this is my service, and this is what I charge, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do together. And if somebody doesn't like that, then I'm like, well, maybe that's not, it's not the best fit. But if you're getting sold something, be very aware.
That's good. It's really good. So for someone just starting out, maybe they're kind of getting in maybe late in the game. Yeah. There's still hope. There's still things we could do. So what's the very first step, or what are the first few steps that someone can make today to start that journey?
Absolutely. If someone has funds that they're able to invest, I had a conversation like this already today. Start today. You guys all know that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? But the next best time is right now. Do it today, right? And so investing now is the best thing that you can do. Now, maybe your goals have shifted from when you were in your 20s or 30s or 40s, but investing can benefit you. It can benefit your heirs. It can benefit charities that you love. So I would say you have to look at your budget. How much might I be able to put away and be comfortable with that? And if you're able to come up with that number and say, I think I could set that and I could do that about every month, just start doing that. And it in 5 years, in 10 years, in 2 years, it could really make a huge difference. I tell a story. My youngest client I met, and he's 12 years old, or he was 12 years old, right? He's 21 now. And he had $8,000 or so that his grandpa had left him. And so I was having a financial conversation with his mom and dad at their kitchen table. And he said, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. So we just put a little bit at a time, and now he's only put half or less than half of that money into account, and it's grown up far more than what he started with. He's up triple from where he started, and just slow and steady. The tortoise wins the race investing, and I love it when I see young people do that, especially. So this is a great conversation for you guys to have with your grandparent or your grandkids. Start early. Just do it. You'll love it when you're my age. You just do it.
That's good. That's real good. So now let's kind of go the opposite end of the spectrum. Some folks who have, planned well, how often should they update or revisit their financial plan?
I think it's prudent to meet annually at minimum with a professional. And one might have attorneys, estate plan attorneys, and that might be a good conversation to have regularly as well. Looking at investment accounts, as you guys know, things can change with a day, right? Yesterday looked different than it does today, and things can change quickly in our lives, whether it's health, whether it's a new opportunity, something going on with a family member, a tragedy that might occur. And so I think it's very prudent for you to meet with someone at minimum annually. And as we mature, we'll start thinking about things. It might be a random thing that we hear on the radio. We might start thinking about, man, I really want to bless. And then you list off the person that's important to you. That might be your church. That might be a grandkid that you know that they need help, or you just see great things in something. You might just have this wonderful thing in your heart that you want to do and you want to bless, and because you planned well, you're in that place to do something to well outgrow your own years, that you can bless somebody else. Man, there's so many opportunities to do that. To think not so much for yourself, but to think about the next generation, or think about those charities that you love.
That's so good. That's so good, Gabe. So that's sort of the long game, right?
Yeah.
Of planning and the short term daily money managing piece. So Karen, how do you help clients simplify bill paying, record keeping, and other financial activities sort of on a day-to-day basis? What does that practically look like?
Absolutely. You've already heard me say this once, and you might hear me say it again. Setting up bills to be paid automatically is the easiest thing to do. And what I recommend is not the old way version of bill pay where you actually physically send it off, but it's where you go out to your AT&T and they pull the payment out, whenever it's due that month. Whatever, all those different payments, if you have them pull it out, then it's just one person and they'll pull it when they need to. And of course, you budget for that. And so setting bills to be paid automatically is number one. That's going to simplify everything. And then secondly, you need to, I would say weekly, check your bank account. Check your bank account activity and your credit card activity to make sure that those bills that you're expecting every month are being pulled out, and making sure that nothing else is being pulled out or nothing is being fraudulently charged on your credit card. And then for record keeping, I love Excel spreadsheets. I've worked with Excel for 30 years, so that's a real comfort for me. Quicken software is another opportunity. There are a lot of different budgeting software out there. And so one of the things on the first page of the handout that's included in your packet is budgeting and things of that nature. And so that's the budgeting resources. And so those are some websites that I selected for y'all. The first top 3 don't have a fee. The second 2 do. And so that's just something for you to take a look at that you're able to do on your own, or something I could assist you with as well.
That's good. So you touched on a couple of things. So what systems or tools do you recommend for seniors, retirees, and their families to track spending and maybe even manage that together in some situations?
Right, and especially if you have family members that are looking at this as well, and they are not in the Georgetown area, it would probably be an online tool, like Quicken software has online tools. These different budgeting resources, they can show you, they can get an idea of what your spending is, and then also a big important thing is having a family member who is able to log into your bank accounts and be able to see and manage that as well. That's one thing that I do for my clients, is to be able to check and make sure, okay, all looks good. And I had a conversation with one client, said, wow, your credit card bill is $3,000 this month. It's usually $2,000. Let's take a look at the transactions. Oh, you had this and you had this. So they were legitimate expenses, but they were more than I expected. And she and I had a conversation about that.
You were saying the importance or the benefit of bill pay, like going and letting AT&T kind of pull that. I wonder for some folks if that is like, I'm giving this person access to my account and that person access to my, and so I'm aware of the technological changes that many of us in the room have seen from when we were younger to now, and that the rate and pace of change is just unbelievable. And so what would you say to a client who felt maybe fearful, maybe a little insecure of, I'm used to, I've always been taught not to give people access, to this and this and this.
Well, one thing you can do for a lot of these payments is you can have the payment go to a credit card instead of an account. Sometimes if they want to go to a credit card, they might charge a fee for that. But we've come so far in 10 years and 20 years, it's a lot more secure than it used to be. And in my personal experience, I find that having automatic bill payment is a lot more secure than mailing a check. If you mail a check, unfortunately, you've got everything on the front of that check. You've got your bank, you've got your account number, you've got your routing number, and you've got your address. And it is so easy in this day and time to replicate that and create fraud. And as a banker, I have seen that fraud perpetuated not just on consumers, but on businesses. And so when it comes to having just you'll be surprised that, let's say your Spectrum bill, you could type in a credit card. And I think a credit card would be a great way to pay a Spectrum bill, because of course, if you use a credit card, then you have the ability to argue that point. Like if something, if Spectrum charged you $500, you could either go to Spectrum or you could go to your credit card company to argue it. But I'm just not a big fan of checks because of the fraud. And I think that getting a better understanding of having them pull those funds out, even just from your credit card, would be helpful. And then at the end of the month, you can look at your credit card balance statement and look and see, okay, Spectrum pulled $200 or charged me $200, that's the expected. And so you're able to pay your bills that way and earn points, maybe for flights or something.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that. Those are all such wonderful points and very true. You'd mentioned about allowing someone to have access, maybe a child, somebody that you trust. That is an important piece. So in the last 5 years or so, investment accounts, have added the option to add a trusted contact. And so what that does is simply, if that person's calling in, they will give them the bare minimum for information. You're not going to disclose everything you have. However, if they're unable to get a hold of you, Like, let's say mail's getting returned, or they've tried to call you, your brokerage or your bank, and they're unable. They have somebody that they can reach out to, because if they don't have that trusted account or contact information, they're not at liberty legally to call out. So it's important that you would have those conversations, I think. And you asked me earlier, what's something, a mistake that people make? I would say start having those conversations with those people you trust. Maybe it's a trustee of a trust, because you're not giving that freedom to your children. Maybe it is one of your children that you plan to take over things at the end of your days. So have those conversations early and start to engage them. But that trusted contact is a real safeguard for you in case your investment facility can't get, and their institution can't get a hold of you. They have somebody that they can reach out to legally.
That's good. You know, two things you mentioned, Karen, I think are really, really helpful is the, kind of checks and balances. So when you do allow, in your example, AT&T, you're able to pull that to go in and check routinely your account to make sure what they said they were going to pull out, they really did, and not just take for granted, that is all running smoothly. It probably will, but always go back in and check. And I know most of my stuff is just automatic pay, and there is a peace of mind about it. Like, oh, I'll never be late on that. It's always, always get taken out. So that's good. So how does a daily money manager interact with financial advisors, CPAs? Like, what's that relationship like when you're working with a client?
Thank you. That's a great question. We work very closely with our clients' advisors. Think of it as I am and my team. We are there in the house helping to prepare. So if the financial planner says, "I need these 4 documents. 2 of these need to be completed," there might have been a change in investment strategy. It could be the loss of a spouse and they need to change the money over. There are forms that need to be completed that sometimes can be kind of complicated. From my 25 years in banking, that's just easy for me. And so I'm able to go in there and either fill out the PDF or handwrite it with the client's assistance. And then, so that's how we work with financial planners. Also, some of the daily money managers are public notaries, and so they can notarize documents, which is a really nice value add. Same thing with estate attorneys. The estate attorney, when someone passes away, there's a whole list. We need all of this documentation. What were the account balances, pretty much the day or the time of the decedent, and trying to fill out all of those forms. And then a lot of those forms need to be notarized and sent back, scanned and uploaded and sent back to the advisor. And then also you've got tax time. We get to pay, or we get to fill out our tax forms every year. And so what I do is with working with my clients, we have red folders, and tax documents go in those red folders. So if the mail comes in and the mail, we look at that mail, but the bottom line is the mail goes into the red folders that is for tax. Open that up, and we've got everything prepped for the tax preparer. I'll take a look and see what tax documents were in last year's tax return and the year before to give me an idea. These are the ones I'm expecting. Dink, dink, dink. And so I have a list and make sure that all those documents come in. And then once we do, they're all set, and it takes the tax preparer just a few hours instead of a few days, because we are in the home gathering these documents, and I know what they look like. I know what 1099 to look for according to that list. So that's pretty much how we work with your advisors.
That's great. So what are some red flags that family members should look for or be aware of to let them know mom or dad, aunt or uncle might need some help managing finances?
So if they're in town and they pop over to see their parent or loved one and they see a lot of unopened bills on the kitchen table, that's that's a red flag. But they might be living out of state, but they recognize or they hear mom complaining that her utility bill was late and they're about to cut off the utilities. And so late bills, stacks of bills on the kitchen table. Another concern is unexplained activity in the bank account. We're starting to get into red flags that could be elder fraud. Another one is large withdrawals from the bank account or questionable charges on the credit card. And then another big one, and I get a lot of my information from AARP. I love that resource. And so another one, and I've seen this as a banker as well, the loved one has a new friend, and that new friend especially likes to take them for a drive to the bank. And of course, the bankers, like me, we don't like to see that either. So those are some things that are signals that their loved one might need some help.
Great, thank you. So just a couple questions both of you can answer. We will land the plane here in just a minute. So what's one small change that folks here today or listening to this video they can make today to better protect their financial future?
Mine would be budgeting. I think you can probably budgeting to make sure what you have and the expected income sources and the expected expenses. That would be my recommendation, would be have a true budget.
I would say when it's time to pull funds, which account to pull from. Also, for those with assets, with meaningful assets, is there a way to change the tax structure of some of those accounts? More to lower RMDs for yourself, required minimum distributions, and or alter the inheritance that someone else might receive. That's a small change. It can be a very big change and very abrupt, but that can also be a small change of direction that can make meaningful benefit especially for your heirs.
Good. So how can seniors really work to manage the independence and support? Independence in doing my own finance budgeting, long-term planning, and then getting support from professionals, from family. Like, how do you navigate that?
I guess it would be pretty much you know your capabilities, and when it gets to be confusing, and I'll be honest, technology just keeps getting more and more. I get confused sometimes, I was explaining to my aunt the other day, she signed up for something, then she had questions, so I signed up for it too, and it's like, Aunt Jan, I'm confused by it. So I think that when it gets to a level of being very overwhelmed and feeling like it's out of control, that's kind of maybe when a family member can be added in or a trusted person. But you've heard me say this a million times, get automatic bill payments set up. That's the easiest way. And then just working with it until you feel comfortable. And then there might be a point where you do need someone else to help you with it, to give you peace of mind so you can go golfing or do whatever, gardening, whatever you want.
I would say on the day-to-day, people don't want to talk to me. I would say that if we're doing our job, if we have a plan in place, and if I understand you and you understand what I'm doing for you, that will give you peace of mind, and you're able to go and golf and not really worry about the markets are doing today, knowing that you have a person that'll let you know, okay, what happened today is significant, and we need to come in and have a review. So be involved, ask lots of questions, but understand what your assets are doing, what your investments are doing, and that'll give you a peace of mind and an assurance that your guy is working for you in the background.
That's good. So last question, what resources or tools would you recommend, as folks maybe starting the journey of sort of getting a handle of their daily money, or starting the journey of planning or getting back on track? Any local, national resources? What would you recommend?
Okay. I like to keep it pretty simple. I'm an Excel spreadsheet gal. They also have Google Sheets. It's something pretty simple where you can just put down these are the lines of income that I get every year, and then these are the expenses that I have. And in a simple nutshell, just look back on what you've spent, like in the year of 2024. Oh yeah, property taxes are coming up in October. I need to take a look at that. So using those types of resources would be really simple to really, really understand income and expenses, and maybe realize, maybe I'll not shop at Costco as much as I did last year, or something like that. I love Costco. But just really having a true understanding of income, expenses, and realizing what that looks like.
And two, I think you've talked about the importance of budget, but a budget is only as good as following the budget, right? You can have it on paper, but you have to really have the stick-to-itiveness, to really kind of, if I budget this, barring some unforeseen catastrophe, really kind of sticking to that.
Well, and that's where those resources on page 1 of the handouts can really help. There's one called You Need a Budget, YNAB. It's more of a cell phone app than, I think there's some other ones that are actually on the computer that might be easier to use. But they can help you track yourself. You create the budget, and then you put in, oops, I spent $20 more at Costco than I had budgeted. So things of that nature.
I always get in trouble at Costco. That's why my wife just goes without me sometimes. Gabe, how about you? What are some resources that can be helpful for people?
We have financial planning softwares, and Scott and I use the same program, but that can be very beneficial to help someone visualize what their one probability to success is, but maybe you're more of a graphical person to really see, and you can kind of understand. We could do a numbers printout if we need to, but you can really understand what your trajectory is compared to your timeline, compared to your goals. Now, if you're interested in just getting your grandkid or your child and interested in investing and saving, I would suggest the accumulation calculator. Write this down. It's accumulation calculator, and it's on the SEC, so the Securities Exchange Commission. It's investor.org. And so that accumulation calculator is really simple. It only has like 5 or 6 different inputs. How much money you're going to put in initially, how much money you're going to save per month, what the interest rate you are wanting. So the S&P 500 averages 8 or 9%. So if you're talking to a kid, that would be a great number to put in there and say, if I put $50 or $100 or $250 in a month, they can really see that line. It's not linear, right? It starts to go to the right and up, and they can get excited about investing at an early age. That's the best thing that we can do for the younger generation, is get them excited to provide for themselves, their older self.
All right, that's great. Thank you both so much. So we're going to open it up for questions. If I could get one of my EPs up on this mic to be a runner for me, and somebody can have this one. Miss Virginia will do this. So if you have questions, raise your hand, and we will do our best to answer them.
Here, Rich.
One question that I think a lot of us would have is, how do you have any guidelines for determining whether the investment advisor or the daily money manager is trustworthy? And if we decide they are trustworthy, how do we reassure ourselves over time that they are maintaining that trustworthiness?
It's a great question. I would ask them if they consider themselves a fiduciary. anyone that deals with an IRA has a fiduciary obligation, but maybe just asking them, what is that and what does that mean to you? And then at that point, you're going to have to sense if they're a genuine person, if they're giving you kind of a canned response. But again, I would say if they're leading with a product, especially if their company name has a product involved, I would just be, I'm not saying that anybody is necessarily, that's a bad thing, but if they're developing a one product meets everything that you need, I would say that's difficult to understand. That's a poor presentation to a client. You could talk to them about what licensing they have, what experience they have, what other companies they've worked for in the past, and get an idea of their background. However, you're an intelligent person, and I believe that you can discern if someone's feeding you something that's not genuine or not. But licensing is important. Are they licensed to do that? What's their experience like? But I think that, are you a fiduciary, and what's that mean to you? It's a big question. You can look them up also. You can Google them and see if they have any reports on FINRA. FINRA is the financial regulatory. It's a finance self-reporting regulatory commission. And every financial advisor, especially if they sell commissional products like a Series 7, is going to be associated with FINRA. And so you can look up their background, and we have to have a background check reported all the time. So you can look, has this person gotten to hot water before?
And as for the daily money managers, I would recommend working with a DMM who is a member of the American Association of Daily Money Managers. A background check is required for membership. And then also, each daily money manager should also have errors and omissions insurance that will cover things of that nature that might be missed. So those are two pieces. I also would look for someone who has a business license, not just, fly by night, that they're here. So those are some of the things I would recommend in looking for a daily money manager.
Well, you might have already answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How would you define a fiduciary obligation?
You just threw that one right back at me. I like that. So my responsibility is to my clients. And so that doesn't mean that I can't benefit from my business operation. Obviously, you guys understand that when we do business, that there's something also that I get paid for my time. And that's what you want anyway. So that fiduciary obligation is that I look to your best interest ahead of my own. And so that doesn't mean that I can't benefit also in the process, but my solution shouldn't be about what makes me the most money today. It should be about what is right for the client, what is legal, what is ethical for the client, and that solution that I give and the recommendations and the guidance that I give, is that truly in the best interest of my client? And so, and it's much more detailed than that, but effectively it's doing what's right for the client above what I would do for myself.
I've got like 10 credit cards, and each one of them has a limit as far as how much you can charge on the credit card. There are several that I rarely use, and I'm thinking of closing them. But is that going to affect my credit rating?
Yes, when you shut down a credit, any type of credit, like if you sell a house, all of the good payments you made on that house, that credit piece is gone, which is unfortunate. But with credit cards, sometimes what I'll do is you can also freeze those cards. That's a biggie. You can freeze your credit card, especially if you don't use it very often. That's what I do with some of mine, and then I keep those physical cards in a safe in the house, and I just have one personal credit card and one business credit card that I carry with me. Does that help answer?
So I shouldn't I shouldn't close them, are you saying? I mean,
It just kind of depends on, for the time being, you might just freeze it with the credit report agencies, have it at zero, at zero balance. But you might want to hold on to them and just stick them in a safe.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes. If you, when you freeze a credit card, you mean call Experian or someone like that? Do you have to call all three of them?
Yes, you have to call each one of them individually to freeze the card. But then that protects you from someone stealing that credit card. They try to use it on Amazon and it won't go through because it's frozen.
If you have accounts that are already, if you have, I have my accounts frozen, but that is not credit cards. That's a different.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You can close the credit card.
That's different than.
Yes, that's
freezing
different
your-
than freezing the credit report.
Yes, yes.
You can, so that's a recommendation, especially if it's one that you don't use often. If it's one that you use a lot, you still can. And a lot of our credit card companies, especially like Bank of America and Chase, they have it in the app where you could, you can close that card, especially if you think, oh my gosh, I just left my credit card at the dry cleaners, and you can just shut it down until you find it and then open it back up again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you talk about how treasury bills work? Because they're a safe investment for when you need money in the short run. You're not looking at a long time. That's one of my questions. I actually have two.
So usually those are short-term bonds under a year, and effectively those sell, you can buy them directly. Most people buy them secondarily on the secondary market after they've been activated, so that way you completely and fully understand what your yield to worst case interest scenario would be. That can be a good solution for someone that wants to keep up with inflation or have some short-term interest rates, and so that can be. So treasuries, bonds, U.S. bonds that are a little longer maturity, 1 to 2 years. I've been putting clients into those things that are looking for safety, nonprofit organizations that really want to just beat inflation or at least make a decent return without taking investment risks. That can be a great opportunity. So those are traded every day, and it really depends on the very day, because as you know, bond or interest rates go up and down. Bond prices in the secondary market go up and down every day, minute by minute. So really, what is the opportunity right now? That's the question with bonds, because the yield can vary significantly from day to day.
Yes,
I'd be happy to talk to you more about that to understand your question. I feel like I didn't really. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, 1 month, 3 month, and up to a year. So, and then we get into notes. We've got different durations all the way out to 30-year on U.S. Treasuries. So it really depends on what you want to do.
so you want to add some precious metals to your portfolio. What celebrity on TV do you go to? Or what's your
Yeah.
recommendation on that, you adding that to your portfolio?
I don't want to give any personal recommendations or advice. However, right now in all of my portfolios, I do have an allocation to gold. I prefer ETF product that's in. Now, other people preferred to have it by themselves. That develops some, we'll just say that most retirement assets or assets that so many people are in IRAs, and when you want to have a self-directed and actually get that delivered, there's a little bit of questionability on that. That can be complex, And there's ways that that can really blow up the tax-favored nation or tax-favored nation favorability of those things. So I do like those things within reason. Obviously, there's celebrities online that will say, put it all in X, Y, and Z, and we like Hannity or whatever, you know? And so we're going to put it all in what he says, or this, yeah, like you said, name your celebrity. It's a valid part of an allocation, but certainly not, and nothing is. You shouldn't put everything in one basket. We know that, right? They said something about eggs at one point, right? Don't put eggs in. Yeah.
I just wanted to add a comment to sort of reinforce what was being said today. You know, throughout our seminars, we're really encouraging seniors to be informed, to make decisions, be empowered. And, you know, it's an interesting balance, but as I was listening, especially to Karen, and also Gabe mentions this, but sometimes we maintain our independence by having a little bit of support.